To be honest, I am way off on the weeks for this project, and it was mostly because I was waiting for this to go away, but if I can't be vulnerable with the internet, who can I be vulnerable with? So this is not on week 3, but this is for week 3 for Moorea Seal's 52 listing. And I was gonna make some sort of like creative, abstract video for this, but for this prompt, I just figured we could just sit and talk about it. The prompt is times that you were most happy in your life. So I thought we would just talk about that. First of all, I want to acknowledge the absolute privilege that I have and that comes with getting to say that I've had more happy than unhappy moments in my life. I'm so grateful, and I know that that is a rare thing to say, and that I'm very fortunate for that. So let's just start. This will not be in any sort of order chronologically or anything. It's just stream of consciousness because that's just how it works. Probably one of the happiest, as cliche as it is, we'll just go ahead and start talking about my times with James and how much joy those have brought me. Whenever we got married, we were both working for the same place, and we were in jobs that were really hard for us on personal levels. They kind of burnt us out, and they brought us kind of into some dark places personally, individually. And so whenever we would come home, it would be really hard to get out of that mindset since we were working for all the same people and had the same situations going on. And I will never forget the feeling of driving away for our honeymoon. We did a 2-week-long-ish road trip from Arkansas all the way up to Seattle and back, and we kind of made like a loop around the western US. And there was just this with every mile, again, this is gonna sound super cliche, but it is what it is. With every mile that we drove away into our honeymoon, I felt lighter and lighter. We got to talk about things we hadn't been able to talk about because we've been too busy or too tired. And it's actually where we started dreaming up our company, TRUEBADOURS, and really started to imagine this life where we were working creatively together. And that was an incredible time in itself, just in the car, and then getting to watch the geography of our country change and go from the Ozarks where we live to flat Kansas to the salt flats of Utah to the mountains in Colorado and of course everything that is in the Pacific Northwest, to the piers in San Francisco and all the way back down, and just getting to have that first big adventure with James that has begun an entire life of adventures with him. Our life has never been easy, but it's never been boring, and he genuinely makes me so happy. Another one that I should probably honestly celebrate more and consider more joyful is when I graduated from college. This is probably another cliched thing, but I worked really dang hard in college. I got 2 degrees in 4 years, and those 2 degrees were really tough, each of them very time-consuming in their own right. And so, am I actually recording? Okay, so I got 2 degrees in 4 years, and they were each really time-consuming of their own right. So, for example, while I was working on somewhat feature-length film for my narrative filmmaking class, I was also writing over 100 pages on proper business practices when working with people from Thailand. So I was doing all of these, plus I was working at least 1, but usually 2 jobs, and I was doing it all on scholarship, so I needed to keep GPAs. And sometimes when I look back in college, I kind of feel regret about maybe not living this college experience of of making a ton of friends and having all of these things. But I first of all had a really great time. I had a few friends, but they were incredible. I went places, I traveled the world, I traveled the country. I went to tons of shows and things like that, but I wasn't as involved as maybe a lot of other people were, especially in my school. And so for that, I would sometimes like regret it, or I would look back on college and just like feel tired all over again, because my like standard sleep schedule is 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I just kind of feel exhausted when I think about it. However, the day I graduated from college was a concrete example that no matter what I do, if I focus on it, I can do it. That I am good at making sacrifices and working hard and achieving goals. And sometimes I lose sight of that for goals that I have now. But it was a relief that I did it, that it was over. But it was also just a joyful time of celebrating the idea that if I set my sights on something, I can do the work and I can make it happen. Another time would be whenever Ron and Leslie became officially our dogs. So we fostered them first from a shelter, and I was honestly like afraid to love them until they were officially mine. Like, we kind of had the idea of Ron and Leslie as their names, but I didn't really want to call them by their names because I was so afraid that I was going to lose them. So I would just call them like boy and girl or brother and sister. But the minute they became our Ron and Leslie, I was so happy. Like, I've never had baby fever ever, but my dog fever was so out of control. If I saw a dog that I thought was cute, which was like every dog, I would take a picture, text it to James, freak out a little bit, contemplate whether I could kidnap it. And so just to be able to be a dog owner, aside from like the dogs I'd had with my parents, it was so joyful. And instead of one, we got a bonus dog because they were a brother and sister package. And they are the most ridiculous dogs ever. I'm going to try, like, we're in the middle of home renovations. When those are done, I really want to bring my camera into the house and I want to show you Ron and Leslie, because they deserve their own spot on the internet, and they're hilarious. They're so cute and they're so sweet and they love to cuddle. And then like in a split second, they're making these weird alien noises and playing with each other. And like, we'll stop watching TV just to watch them. And so they just bring constant joy into our lives. Another one that's maybe a little more serious was Christmas of 2016. 2016. My dad had been in the hospital from the beginning of December for heart issues that were total surprises. And by all counts, that should have been our first Christmas without him. But instead, he had been home for a little bit and he was still recovering from open heart surgery, and we just sat there playing puzzles. And like, side note, I genuinely hate puzzles. I think they're terrible ways of torturing people. However, that one time, I was just so incredibly happy to be sitting there doing something as mundane and normal as a puzzle with my dad. There was just this overwhelming sense of gratefulness that led to a really deep-rooted joy that I'll never forget, and that I don't ever really want to take for granted. A more general one is that I feel happiest when I am telling stories and being creative. When I was growing up, I always knew I wanted to do something creative. First, I wanted to be a ballet dancing nurse, which I feel like was my peak creative moment. Then I realized I hated all things medical, and I wanted to be Britney Spears, which I will consider both a high and low point in my life. And I always wanted to do music. And you know how like some kids can really like show what they're going to be when they grow up, like my sister who's an accountant, who literally wanted to just play a game where she made change all the time. We knew she was going to do something with math or money, and she's doing both. My parents never really felt like they had that with me until you watch me being a bossy little kid in home videos. Like, I'm directing my friends and I'm working out these ways to tell stories, and I would lock myself in my room and I would play Barbies for hours. And I never really knew what that creativity was going to do. I felt really mediocre at a lot of different types of art until I picked up a camera. And even though I could argue that I'm still pretty mediocre with that, it sparked a passion. It's like the camera becomes one with my body, and that's super weird and super woo-woo, but I don't know how else to explain it. My mind and my body are connected through this tool where I get to step in and I get to tell stories, and that is one of the most joyful practices I have, and I'm really grateful that it's also my job, so I get to do it day in and day out. I love meeting people, and I love hearing what they're actually saying and finding the things that they're trying to say and then pushing those out into the world so that people can realize they're not alone, can celebrate or mourn or support these people that I'm bringing to their attention. I love documenting beauty and things that make life worth living. And I love to do that through music still. There's this deep sense of fulfillment and joy that comes when I'm on stage, mostly at my church, leading worship, getting to use what small bit of musical talent I've been given to help provide a place of peace and solace and safety and time for meditation and prayer for other people. As well as just like the physical act of singing and playing makes me so happy. But just in general, and mostly through cameras and music, getting to be a storyteller and getting to be an artist and a creative, I feel like that was like the whole that was made just for me in this planet, is to do what I do. And I'm super incredibly happy and lucky and #blessed that this is what I get to do every day. And I hope I never stop feeling that joy when I am telling the story. I try to choose joy even when I don't feel like it. I know 2017, I've said it over and over, it was really hard, and life can be really hard. But I do feel like I can choose joy. I can't always choose happiness or necessarily even positivity, but I can choose joy. To me, joy is deep. It is a soft current running in the bottom of your spirit, letting you know things move forward. There is good, there is beauty, there is hope, but it's outside of my present moment. So each day I try to choose joy, but those were just some of the more joyful moments that have stood out in my very lucky, privileged, beautiful life.